anyone who has made me aware of any requests for bill introductions, so I will presume that there are none, and if there is, well, you should have got with me ahead of time. We'll introduce those next week. We will start today with a hearing, and this is the only thing on the agenda, is a hearing on Senate Bill 36. So I will open up the hearing on Senate Bill 36, and we will begin with an overview of the legislation from Revisor Lawrence. And you should have a copy of the bill in front of you, committee. This, for particularly our newer members, you will not see very many bills that are just the front of one page. So this is a very simple, straightforward bill. I say it's simple, it's straightforward. Bill. Revisor Lawrence.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, committee. I'm Tamara Lawrence with the Office of Revisor of Statutes, and you should have a memorandum or access to a memorandum that looks like this that goes into the details of the bill. It also contains a little bit of background information on conservation districts, just in case you're unfamiliar. So Senate Bill 36 would amend KSA 2 1907C, which relates to the state funding requirements for conservation districts, of which there are 105, one in each county. And Senate Bill 36 would change three things in the statute. Currently, the deadline for conservation districts to submit certification of county funding to the Department of Agriculture Division of Conservation is September 1st. The bill would move that deadline to November 1st. The second thing the bill would do is the state appropriation to conservation districts is currently capped at $25,000 per district. The bill would increase that cap to $50,000 per district, subject to appropriations. And the third thing the bill would do is that current law provides that state appropriations dispersed to conservation districts are on a one-to-one matching basis. Senate Bill 36 would amend that so that the appropriations could be made on a 2-to-1 matching basis up to that $50,000 limit. The bill would take effect on July 1 of 2026 upon publication in the statute book. And I would note that these changes are actually currently in effect for this fiscal year for 1 year only due to a budget proviso in last year's omnibus bill. And if this bill does look familiar, the language of this bill is nearly identical to last year's House Bill 2800. That bill did pass the House, but I believe due to timing got delayed here in the Senate. And with that, I will answer any questions.
Thank you. One question from the chair. The change of the month from September to November, is that in the proviso in the budget bill? And if you don't know, our conferees, I'm certain, probably can answer.
It looks to me like in the proviso, it does say November 1st, but I want to read it thoroughly just to double check that.
Okay, but that was a request from the folks you worked with in drafting the bill, correct? September to November.
Correct.
We'll let them answer the whys. Committee, do you have questions of our Senator Reichman?
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you very much for the, I guess, the lowdown on this. Who brought the bill?
I would have to check my notes, but I believe the person who requested introduction of the bill in this committee was Sean Miller, and I don't remember who that was on behalf of, the Conservation Districts Association. Yes.
We will let the conferees tell us who brought the bill, but go ahead.
I'm done then, thank you.
Other Senator Ware.
Yeah, just quickly, do you have the numbers of when it passed the House, what the vote was?
It was 120 to 3.
Additional questions, committee? Seeing none, our first conferee on Senate Bill 36 is, well, I should have asked about the last name. Dan Meyerhoff, potentially, Kansas Association of Conservation Districts. Is it Meyerhoff, Mr. Meyerhoff?
That name perfect.
Okay.
Which it gets butchered a lot, so congratulations on that, yes. But thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the committee for the opportunity to submit testimony in support of Senate Bill 36. KACD, the Kansas Association of Conservation Districts, we represent the 105 conservation districts across the state, one in every county. And those conservation districts are governed by a 5-member volunteer board. So you have 525 volunteers across the state, providing local leadership on conservation efforts across the state in their local counties. I'm not going to touch or read that written testimony that we've provided. I just want to hit some of the highlights and, cover any questions you might have. I think did a nice job of explaining the bill, as far as going from 1-to-1 match, 2-to-1 match, so I'm not going to get into that. But I will talk about the fact that, that $25,000 cap that was in place was there for 18 years. And there's been a tremendous amount of increase in need, operations, et cetera, for conservation districts. So it's been a struggle to maintain staff because, the low pay, lack of benefits. And so we're really needing an increase in this funding to support and maintain staff. Now, conservation districts, the primary delivery system for state programs delivered by the Division of Conservation, Water Resources, non-point source. We also provide a lot of support, the primary delivery system for the Kansas Reservoir Protection Initiative. We work closely with KDHE on RAPS implementation, along with, working with Forest Service, Wildlife and Parks on a lot of different initiatives. In the 95 counties where USDA has a service center, we're co-located. And we provide a tremendous amount of assistance, administrative and technical assistance, in helping NRCS, the Natural Resources Conservation Service, deliver their federal programs, which result in millions of dollars of financial assistance, technical assistance to producers across the state. In districts also, we have a very strong education outreach segment to our operations. Conservation districts across the state, we get into the school systems. We educate thousands of students, both elementary, high school students, on the importance of conservation and natural resource preservation each year in the schools. We also have a strong adult education program providing range health, soil health, dealing with regenerative ag, helping producers understand better opportunities for being more productive in their ag operations and doing a good job of taking care of our natural resources. So what Senate Bill 36 will do is help us to maintain staff. Without having good, experienced staff on place in those offices, it's hard to deliver these programs. And so we're wanting to reduce the turnover that we have by being able to provide a living wage and provide health benefits. I think in the written testimony it talks about only about 1/3 of our conservation districts can afford health benefits for our employees, and that's a big draw for our employees to move on. And so we want to be able to maintain staff so that we can provide quality assistance to our constituents out there and our customers in each one of the counties across the state, and provide that assistance to NRCS and the state agencies that are trying to deliver those programs at the local level. With that, I encourage you to support Senate Bill 36, and with that, I will stand for questions at the appropriate time.
Thank you for the testimony. I know I could calculate it, but I have not. Have you calculated the maximum dollar amount or fiscal note this could be to the state if everyone maxed out?
If they were to max it out, and I could look back at Steve Frost, who's the Director of Division of Conservation, but I believe it'd be about $5.2 million. Is that correct, Steve?
Yes, it is. Okay, so if every county maxed out, committee, we're talking a maximum of $5.2 million. And for your information, I know you have a fiscal note in front of you, but in fiscal year 25, which is the current fiscal year, which this is in effect because of a proviso in the budget, it's $3.5 million is what the expenditure was, an average of $33,300 for each district. Each district is one county, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Questions, committee? Senator Titus.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Do you have an idea of how many counties, so the max funding is $25K from a county to get the match or exceed, do you know how many counties provide the max or exceed that?
It is over 90. want to say 91, 92, 93 counties last year provided 25,000 or more. And that was an increase from the year before. I do believe the proviso last year provided that incentive for counties to provide some additional funding.
What's the starting pay for someone that takes over an office or provides services, roughly?
I can tell you that the range is from $13 an hour to about $30 an hour. So somewhere around $18 to $20 an hour for an average pay. I'm going to say most of them probably start out at 15 to 17.
You know, and I've heard from local districts that, you know, it's difficult to hire and hold these positions, and as soon as you get them trained, they just jump over to NRCS because it's higher pay, better benefits, et cetera. Right, I think we've seen that at all levels of government. But to double the 2-to-1 match, it just makes me raise the question here, should we be doing something in order to access a higher level of funding to encourage these districts to start sharing staff and sharing employees so that we can offer a competitive wage and keep people that maybe to serve 2 or 3 counties instead of constantly churning? Because I don't think this is enough money to really stop that churn.
I don't think it'll totally stop the churn. I think it'll provide a tremendous amount of stability. But we already do have sharing of staff across county lines in certain counties, and we encourage that, you know, hiring staff, especially technical staff that work 2, 3 counties within an NRCS management unit. So we're already headed that direction. This will help us get there.
Thank you.
You mentioned in your testimony that $25,000 had been the limit for 18 years. Do you know what it was prior to that?
Before 25,000? Yeah, it was 10,000.
10,000, okay. And are you knowledgeable as to, has the funding always come from the state water fund?
I know I'm old and gray-haired, but I'm not sure I know the exact answer on that one. I could look back to Steve. Yes, according to Steve Frost with the Division of Conservation, it always has come from the water fund.
If you want to step up to the mic, identify yourself, and answer the question, that would be appreciated.
Steve Frost, Division of Conservation in the Kansas Department of Agriculture, Mr. Chairman and committee members. So the answer to that question is actually that the state aid to conservation districts originally came from the state general fund. And about in 2012, there was a decision made to convert that over into the state water plan funds. And as I understand it now, the governor's proposed budget moves that back into state general funds in her budget. So I think that's the proposal that you might be considering sometime.
Well, according to the fiscal note that we have, it says that for fiscal year 26, the governor recommends $4.3 million appropriation from the state water plan fund and $1 million transfer from the 2024 House Bill 2302 projects fund. So it doesn't appear that it's from state general fund, according to the fiscal note that was provided to us by the Division of Budget.
Okay, my mistake.
Well, that's fine. I just want to find out if you are correct or if they're correct. And so we'll get that answer another time, unless you have an answer for us, Mr. McGinn. We'll get everybody up standing around the mic here soon. So if you would identify yourself, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Assistant Secretary Josh McGinn, Kansas Department of Agriculture. You are correct that in the current year, it would continue to pull on state water plan funds for that match. I think there has been discussion about that source of funding.
So there's been discussion, but it is still currently water plan.
Correct.
Committee questions, pardon me, of Mr. Meyerhoff or Senator Fagg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for your presentation. It says here the district receives their annual funding from the county commission in their home county. What kind of budgets do they run? I mean, if you've seen the average, we're throwing $25,000 into the pot. If you looked at the annual budget, how much does the county throw into these things? And how much federal money? Is there federal money goes into this? I'm just trying to get a feel of what their budgets are.
Sure. Federal dollars, in those 95 counties where there is a USDA presence, districts do get office space and support with, office equipment and so on to help them with operations. There's not really any monetary funds provided from the federal to the conservation districts. But county by county, it varies. I think the low end is around $16,000 or $17,000. The high end is, I'm going to say around $80,000, but I'm going to say on the average it's around $25,000 to $35,000 per county that the counties are putting in. But it's a wide range. I can provide you that county by county list if you'd like to see it.
Just trying to get a feel of,
Yeah, I'd say most county budgets they're probably operating on $50,000 or less.
okay.
If you would provide the committee with that county by county
Certainly.
document that you said you could, that would be appreciated. Just provide it to our staff, and they will
Can
distribute
do that.
it to the committee. Additional questions, committee? Senator Bowser.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Not so much a question, but just a comment. I have very positive things to say about our conservation district. Was telling Mr. Meyerhoff before the meeting here, on my farm, I'm in year 3 of a 4-year plan where we're implementing tiles and terraces on my farm. That runs right through the NRCS and the conservation district there in Jackson County. Those folks have been very helpful. And I certainly appreciate the hard work that they do. They've been very responsive to my needs, and I've had nothing but good luck with them, and I appreciate your testimony today. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So do we should be listed as a conferee? No, just kidding.
It would be hard to replicate what we have with our conservation district delivery system as being more efficient and more effective for the dollars that are put towards it, that's for sure.
Yeah, they're co-located, as you said, I think in one office.
Work closely together. We work very closely with NRCS.
Yes, yep.
Senator Fagg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What was the, when we went from 25 to 50, what was the thought process? Why did we arrive at 50?
I think that was just some conversation amongst ourselves and with some legislators on, where we should arrive at. And we ended up with House Bill 2800 last year being introduced in the House Ag Natural Resources Committee using that $50,000 figure. It's, it seems, maybe it sounds like I'm going from 25 to 50, but it's been 18 years. We could certainly go higher than that and put it to good use.
So how often, why did we wait 18 years to do this? You've been around.
Well, I've been the executive director for about between 7 and 8 years. And we have worked on trying to get increased funding this entire time. From 2008 until now, getting the full match from the state for the $25,000 has been a challenge. And we finally got to that point, but also realizing that that's not enough. And that's why we made this recommendation of, and introduced the bill last year, going to $50,000 cap.
Thank you. Seeing no additional questions, Mr. Meyerhoff, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Next up, committee, we have Assistant Secretary from the Kansas Department of Agriculture, which you've already met, Mr. Josh McGinn.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I don't want to rehash a lot of what's in our testimony, as I appreciate Director Meyerhoff has already gone over that. And I do appreciate that he mentioned the hourly rates, because I didn't have that information for how much they're paid. What I do want to emphasize on the funding is that it is $50,000 for each county, so it would just, I don't want one county to be left off. It would be 5.25 if you take 105 times 50. So just want to make that clear. For this year, we also have the information on how many counties are currently meeting the match. The latest information we had is 93 counties are meeting the $25,000 match. And that is up from recent years. I believe that's because the legislature has fully funded that, has gradually increased that match rate. So we've gotten more counties to contribute locally. And the other thing I want to emphasize about that is that at the county level, they'll use that for the hourly rate, but then the county or the state and county partnership then also has to cover any kind of fringe benefits. So that's why it sounds like a lot of money potentially, but they have to cover everything out of the state and local match. And there are some counties that do provide additional match on top of what the state is matching. So I just wanted to mention that. Again, I don't want to rehash what Mr. Meyerhoff had already said, but as you all discussed, these people are really the front door for our producers in every county throughout the state. And it helps to have experienced individuals in these offices so that when they're working with these state and federal programs, they can help the producers know what the requirements are and meet the requirements and draw down the appropriate program funding for that producer. I think, again, most of the rest of my testimony has already been covered. These individuals work with programs like Environmental Quality Incentives Program, Conservation Stewardship Program, the Agricultural Conservation Easement Program, Wetland Reserve Enhancement Program. But what I do want to emphasize is that with the state water plan discussion, having local conservation district managers who are experienced does help us as a whole with the state funding piece so that they know not only how to help producers use that funding, but also then potentially how to report up that return on investment as a state. So that's just something else I wanted to emphasize. I know you've had discussions about the state water plan in recent days, and they have discussed how local communities often don't have the technical assistance for state drinking water programs. That is absolutely true. It is also true that for our producers, they need someone that they can go and visit with at their county office to access any of the programs that we have at the state or with our partnership with NRCS. And I believe Secretary Beam mentioned yesterday, we have a really good opportunity over the Ogallala with the RCPP that we have there. It's $25 million over 5 years. We certainly need the support of our local conservation district managers to help work with producers to get that money out the door as well. So with that, I'm happy to stand for any questions.
Do you have any knowledge of history as to why it's just the state water fund versus state general fund?
I'm also starting to get some gray hairs, but I don't actually know the answer to that either. I'm sorry. We can check on that.
All right. And you'd mentioned some counties exceed the 25,000 currently.
Correct, yes.
Which of course is the max on the state match. Do some exceed it significantly or not?
Some do exceed it by more than double $25,000. It's relatively few. I would also mention of the 12 remaining counties that do not meet the match, I've seen the list, and they are some of the counties with the lowest assessed valuation in the state. So I think it is understandable why they haven't met that. But yes, different counties contribute more, and then they can even use that for local matches or other tools for those producers as well as just salary and benefits.
I would call that some of our poorest counties. You use
Correct.
prettier
Yes.
words with lowest assessment
Correct.
valuation. But okay.
Yeah.
Committee, do you have questions of Assistant Secretary Senator Fagg?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Assistant Secretary, for your presentation. To your knowledge, do we have any office manager openings? You know, we got 105, we don't pay too much. Just wonder where we're at with that to start with.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Chairman. Yes, we have looked at that. Our Division of Conservation is a pretty small but mighty team, and they keep track of that as well. They try to work with our conservation districts to try to keep those positions filled, but I think we should be able to get you some information on how many of those positions remain unfilled. I do believe that even with the recent enhancement, we have improved that, and we have slightly fewer vacancies. Thank you.
So when I read this about what the districts create and execute programs, that laundry list of stuff there, does anybody actually take performance-based stuff and say, well, this is how many projects we've done? I mean, to show where we're getting our bang for the buck here. Has any work been done like that?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The program does have performance measures like all of our programs do. I do think that that's part of this discussion more broadly about evaluation and metrics as part of HB 2302 and how we can bring more of that to the table. So that is something we're actively discussing, is how can we update some of those performance metrics so that they're more targeted to what has been approved recently.
I would think that that would help sell the county and the state on why we ought to be doing this. So, thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Senator Alley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One question after reading your testimony. The money from the state, obviously, is tax money and comes from water plan, comes in. The money from the county is also tax money. Correct. Is there any fees that you charge?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just say that many of these programs do also require some investment by the producers themselves. I'm not aware of any fees that this program charges. A lot of programs at the Kansas Department of Agriculture are fee funded, but I think a lot of times it is the producer that has to also contribute something to these projects.
Thank you.
Additional questions, committee? Senator Titus.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. McGinn, can you give me an idea of, you mentioned, helping with the Ogallala, for example. What sort of projects are we majority doing? Are we building terraces? Are we doing irrigation technology sort of proportionate? Is it a little bit of irrigation technology and a lot of farm ponds, or what does that work look like when you start talking about bigger? I understand the original mission and the soil preservation and soil health, but what does that look like when we start talking about some of these water-related things?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just say that in recent years, and certainly as part of the RCPP, irrigation technology and water conservation has become more and more of an emphasis. There are other practices that may work for certain producers when it comes to terraces and other practices, but as we look at our performance metrics and what we're doing for the Ogallala, certainly the irrigation tech, if there's any way to reduce nutrient runoff, that also still can help with water conservation and with sedimentation issues. And for our Kansas Reservoir Protection Initiative, that's certainly another metric that we would be looking at. So.
Seeing no additional questions, appreciate your testimony, Assistant Secretary.
All right, thank you.
Committee, I will also bring your attention to the fact that we have written testimony as a proponent from Justin Cobb, the Nature Conservancy, and we have no other conferees listed as proponents, opponents, or neutral. So with that, we will close the hearing on Senate Bill 36. I do not have anything additional for the committee. I do plan to work this bill next week. If you see anything that you think needs to be amended, or if you need any additional information from any of the interested parties, please reach out to them, or you can sometimes frequently, what the chair does, just reach out to our staff and let our staff do the heavy lifting on our behalf. Staff, you're welcome. Having nothing further, we are adjourned.